Hello, lovely people. In this video, I want to talk about why life and knitting, which are two interchangeable concepts in my book, would be made much more exciting by the inclusion of more colour. A trend I've been noticing lately in the knitwear world especially is a lot of neutral colour tones and palettes. Think designers like Petite Knit or My Favorite Things Knitwear. And even the recreation of these patterns, I've seen people make them in a lot of neutrals. And I am not a neutral hater. There's a lot of good to be said for neutral colour tones. It allows you to use undyed natural wool and retain that yummy, delicious, sheepy smell. It also lets you use a colour palette that will go with a lot of things in your wardrobe, something you can wear over and over and over again, which is great in terms of easy styling and also sustainability. But that being said, I think we also need a push for bringing back colours. So in this video, I want to talk about why the inclusion of more colour in your knitting patterns can do a lot for creativity and also self-expression in the things that you make and the things that you wear. Of course, little disclaimer, colours in knitting is not a new concept. I only wish to add to the discussion. There are a lot of beautiful traditions of colourful knitting around the world. Think Fair Isle knitting patterns in the UK, absolutely stunning, or even an offset, like a branch of Scandinavian knitting that I would define by designers like Scapel Oslo or Runner Strick, and they make a lot of beautiful, flowery, bright, bold colourwork patterns, kind of 80s inspired. And they're absolutely stunning. There are still a lot of beautiful, colourful knitting around the world. I just want to talk about colour in knitting to help it grow, I suppose. The way I'm going to structure this video is I want to talk a little bit more about the rise of neutral tones, specifically in the post-pandemic era. I'm then going to move on to the psychology of colour, just a very surface level look at it, but why it is more exciting and more fun to include colours in your knitting and why it encourages creativity. Then I'm going to look at my 5 top tips for how to include more colours in your patterns and how to choose colours that will complement your knitwear and complement your wardrobe. And finally, I'm going to finish off with just a few words on how to adapt existing patterns to be more colourful beyond just simply making it in a colourful yarn. So join me, get your colourful knitting, here's mine, and let's get into the video. So first of all, I think neutral tones have always been in fashion. Think country club vibes, super wealthy, that kind of effortless minimal style that people, a lot of people strive for. But especially in the post-pandemic era, during and after our COVID lockdowns, I think there's been an absolute boom in the number of people wearing neutrals and it being idolized in celebrity culture as well. I pulled a quote from Singaporean fashion brand Mayfair. Neutral tones exude understated elegance and timeless sophistication. These soft yet powerful neutral wardrobes are nothing new, as they've long been a go-to for the ultra-rich elite. But the post-pandemic fashion climate, from the runways of Zegna to the street-style icons like Hailey Bieber, clearly signals that softer tones are here to stay. My personal opinion that this is somewhat related to more people wanting to wear bougie, lounge, stay-at-home sets. Things that look put together enough for you to hop on a Zoom meeting, but are also comfortable enough that you can lounge around on your couch. Also, in the pandemic area with so much going on, you don't want to think too hard about your clothes and you're not going out. There's no need for the bold, eye-catching styles that are going to get you noticed in the streets. I also think it's no coincidence that around that same pandemic era, a lot of people were picking up their knitting needles for the very first time. And because you have the rise in neutral colour tones and the rise in hobbies to keep us distracted and to keep us busy at home, things like knitting, it makes sense that knitting in neutral colours is going to boom in popularity as well. They're two popular things. Makes one. The way I wrote it on my script, this sounds a lot better than how I'm rambling on now, is the knitting styles and patterns that boomed in popularity are those that mimicked the neutral and easy breezy minimalist styles we were obsessed with at the time. Quoting myself. Amazing. I also think it's no coincidence that hello beautiful cat. I also think it's no coincidence that some Nordic knitwear designers boomed in popularity at the time. People like Petite Knit, who was established in 2016, but in 2020, like, her career seemed to absolutely take off because everyone wants these accessible patterns in colour palettes that match the activities and the lifestyle of, stay at home during the lockdowns. And her patterns, from what I noticed and from what I was reading in a couple articles online, were so widely shared in online communities and platforms like Ravelry, which is really exciting. And I think that's just evidence of how popular neutral and Nordic knitting styles were. Moving on though, little disclaimer, this is absolutely no shade on neutrals. I love neutrals myself, especially a matching set. I think it's perfect if you're running out to get a coffee and it gives that I didn't try too hard, you don't have to think too hard, while still looking very polished and elegant and put together. Absolutely is not a dig at neutrals. It's just an encouragement to expand our knitting colour palettes and allow colours to bring more creativity and expression into our lives and our knitting. So, what is the psychology of colour? A 2025 Medium article reported that psychologists explain every colour sends a signal to the brain. These signals affect our heartbeat, our thoughts, and even our decisions. That is why hospitals are painted in cool blues and greens to reduce stress, and why restaurants use red and orange to make people excited and hungry. I guess McDonald's is a good example of that. The same article later says, when we choose our colours wisely, we are not just choosing style, we are choosing emotions, energy, and even the way the world will respond to us. I am no brain scientist, so I'm not going to go into depth in the exact chemical changes or why this happens, but I do want to talk a little bit about colours for me and how I use the psychology of colour in my life. For example, blue is my absolute favourite colour, and I think subconsciously whenever I'm meeting someone new or going to be in an environment with a lot of new people, I always wear blue because it makes me feel confident. And I also think if I meet someone new and I'm making a first impression and they're going to associate me with a colour or a vibe, I want that colour to be blue. When I go to my MMA, my fighting classes, I have pink gloves and I absolutely love, and pink hand wraps. And I absolutely love my pink gloves because I want to look and feel like a boss-ass girl bitch when I'm going at it. If I am going to spar and compete with the boys in my class, I want to do that proudly as a woman while wearing pink gloves. I'm not afraid to be a girl in the MMA space. It's something I want to embrace. Another one is I always wear red on date night. It makes me feel sexy and confident and ... Another good one. My cat is orange, which I think is a very happy colour. Maybe that's his color psychology working out for him. In knitting and creative hobbies, I think there's even more of a benefit beyond just expression and wearing colours that give a certain feel. I think making colourful projects actually encourages creativity from the get-go. Colour can inspire creativity. Think of how yarn shopping, for a lot of people, myself included, is practically considered its own separate hobby. And when you go yarn shopping, you're looking for things that catch your eye or make you feel excited to work with it. So for me, that would be interesting textures or interesting colours. I'll see a beautiful yarn and it can inspire a bunch of different projects that I might never have thought to make before seeing the yarn. And personally, as much as I love working with a cream coloured plain wool, I am a lot more inspired by the electric blue alpaca yarn that I see. It gives me so many more ideas. Or the soft dusty pink boucle. This cat's having an amazing time. Yeah, so creativity or colour inspiring creativity starts from the ground up when you're just choosing your yarn for the first time. So, chapter 3, this is the crux of the video. This is the meat. This is the bit that I want you to watch and take away 5 different ideas for how you can incorporate colour more into your knitting if that's something you struggle with or are a little bit intimidated by, or even if, you just want ideas. Little bit of a disclaimer. These are not colour rules. I don't think you can have, or I don't think you can or should have rules when it comes to including more colour. The whole point of this video is to encourage creativity, not tell you what you can't do. If you want to do neutrals, go for it. Tip number 1, look at the colour wheel. Ta-da! This is the colour wheel. I obviously did not come up with it. I stole it from all the painters and the artists of the world. When I use the colour wheel to inspire my knitting colourful choices, I always look at the colours that are either right beside each other, because they're likely to go very well, or like a square or 2 over, just same section, or I look at the direct opposite for like a really fun contrast. For example, my favourite colour combinations I think are pink and red are really cute together. They're right beside each other on the colour chart. Or or blue and orange. I think that's a really cool opposite pairing. Green and purple is another great one. I don't know if that looks that good on me. Red and like that tealy aqua colour is one that I'm noticing for the first time. I've never really played around with that, but it follows the colour wheel theory. Opposite colours look good together. So I might try that out. Tip number 2 is matching warm versus cool tones. So I find when knitting a project that has multiple colours especially, you want to pick either just cool colours or just warm colours or just neutral tones. And that really helps to have colours that blend well together and look like they belong. A common misconception, I think, with warm and cool colours is that it's the colour itself that defines whether or not it's warm or cool. So for example, blues and greens are cool, reds, orange, yellows, pinks are warm. And while I think this is true in some contexts, what I'm talking about is the hue, I think. And you can get warm and cool tones. I'm getting my lingo confused. It's either hue or tone. I think it might be tone. But you can get like warmth versus cool tones in any different colour. So you can get a warm blue or a cool blue. Here's a little diagram. And this applies to almost every color. So warm green versus cool green, warm red versus cool red, warm pink versus cool pink. So if I'm trying to come up with a color palette to do 2 or more colors beside each other, I'll try and make sure most of them are in the same category. Like I'll use a warm red with a warm pink, or a cool green with a cool purple. I know, especially last year, talking about your own color tones and whether you're a warm or cool or a neutral person really blew up. So I think this is something that if you're confident in what your skin tone is, whether you're a warm or a cool, then that's something you could also use to inform your color palette, I assume. To be completely honest, I've never actually figured out whether I am a warm or a cool, which makes me think I must be neutral. So personally, matching my clothes to my color tone is something I've never had to think too hard about, but I'm sure that's something you could do. This brings me to my next method for choosing multiple colors, and I'm really excited about this one because don't mind if I do, but I came up with it myself. And I think it's an easy way to do multiple color stripes and ensure that they all go together, and also encourage you to think of some combinations that you might not have thought of before. So the 6 color stripe method, TM, copyright, nah, just kidding, y'all can have it, is to choose 2 colors that go really well with each other. So you can look at the back at the color wheel maybe and choose 2 colors beside each other, or 2 colors opposite, or just any 2 colors you like the look of together. I'll bring out my little project for demonstration. So I have chosen pink and blue, and then you get 2 shades of each color. So I have these 2 lovely pink colors and 2 lovely blue colors. And then you want to choose 1 color that pops and 1 neutral, and try and match the neutral to the tone or the hue that the majority of your colors are. So if I've done majority cool colors, then I'll choose a cool toned neutral, something like a light gray or a ecru white kind of a color, or even a cool brown. Or if the majority of my colors are warm, then I'll choose a warm toned neutral. So something like a cream or a nice tan color, cool toned brown. No, sorry. A nice warm color, warm toned brown. In my case, the majority of my colors are cool toned. So for my neutral, I've gone with this cool toned gray. And for my pop of color, I've gone with a bright green. Here is what they all look like together. Or when you put them in the project, here's how it turns out. And I am so happy. And this is just one example of how the 6 color stripe method could be used. For example, some other cool ones that pop to mind is starting with a base of 2 greens and 2 purples, doing like a cool, like a warm toned brown, and then a pop of pink would be a nice one. Doing a blue, like tealy blue and an orange, maybe with a pop of red. I have to think. I have to think what neutral would go well with that, but I will put a little swatch up here for you guys. I'd love to hear how y'all might use this 6 stripe color method if you want to put your thoughts in the comment below. But yeah, it's one that I'm very excited by. I love stripes. I think it's very fun. Tip number 4, drawing inspiration from nature or art. Because why work too hard when the famous artists of the world, or even Mother Nature, has done all the hard yards of pairing up the colours for you? We're hard-working women. We don't need to lay it on. So what I mean by this is finding a painting, for example, or an art piece that you love the palette of and love the vibe of, and taking swatches of colours that stand out in that painting. So a couple examples is the famous Girl in the Pearl Earring. I think this painting is absolutely stunning. I am lucky enough to have seen it in Den Haag in real life. Photos of me on my little trip. I think this could inspire a really beautiful colour palette with some olivey green, that lovely cornflower blue, and that light buttery yellow. I feel like they look stunning together, and it's not something I might necessarily have picked out myself. And it would inspire me to knit a really lovely project. Another one is this piece by Alma Thomas. It's called the Eclipse. And a lot of her work, if you look her up, is just a lot of really fun patterns and colours, and she uses like circles and soft shapes really, really well. But in order to make a piece like that pop and to do it as talented in as talented a way as she did, you have to be really good at picking complementary colours. And bonus for us, it makes it really easy to swatch because you see the colours laid out in this one, like the dark blue to light blue to that reddy orange to the goldy kind of yellow colour. Looking at it now, this inspires me to make a jumper following the same colour transitions that she's used. So maybe starting up by the collar with like a dark blue, moving into some like light blue, dark blue stripes, moving into orangey, finishing with yellow. I think that would be a really cool way to stripe a jumper without doing the traditional alternating stripes like I've done here. She's done some beautiful artwork that can inspire your knitting, as it will inspire mine. So I didn't know about this artist before I started doing some research for this video, but I was thinking a cool way to ensure you're getting a good colour palette out of looking at art pieces is to look at more simple pieces. Things that don't use a lot of colours, but the colours they do use have an impact. They make you feel something, or they're bright, or they're attention grabbing, because when you only have a few colours, there's not a lot of room for error, I suppose. Each colour you choose has to be really intentional. So I liked this piece by Li Shan Chong. Fingers crossed the spelling was all right. But I think it could, I really love the dark blue with the light blue of the tears and the pop of red. I think that could inspire a really cool striped jumper. Or even like a colour block, like a dark blue jumper with a light blue cuffs and bright red pockets or something. And then if you're not going to use artwork, we can also ask ourselves, who is the most beautiful painter, artist of all? Mother Nature, the OG colour combinationist. There's a lot to be inspired from just looking around at your favourite plants or flowers or the ocean. A couple examples that I like is looking at cherry blossoms in the sky. So maybe having a few like stripes in a dark pink and a light pink and a sky blue and then a brown to represent the branches. I think that would be a really cool combination. Another one is New Zealand's kowhai plant. Kowhai means yellow in Te Reo, but it's also the name for this type of flower. So I love the yellow leaves and then the kind of olivey green, I don't know if it's called, it's not called a stem, but like the olivey green cap part of the flower. And then if you see a picture with the leaves, you can kind of see it in the blurred bit of this photo. The leaves are bright green. So that would be quite a cool combination. Yellow, olive green, and bright green. Finally, using color changing yarn. This top tip I cannot claim credit for because I went to knit club the other day and I saw one of the lovely ladies at my knit club was working on a piece that had a stripe of color changing yarn and then a stripe of neutral, and she'd done all the details like the collar and the cuffs and the seams were in this lovely green color, like just a plain green that matched one of the colors in the color changing yarn. And I think this is a really cool way if you're a bit intimidated by choosing colors yourself or you don't quite know what works. A hand yarn dyer, like small businesses, I don't know how you would call it, someone who hand dyes yarn. They've done the work for you. They've done the work for you. Essentially, they've picked the colors that they think will go well together and prepared it all for you in a beautiful hand-dyed skein. I'm just assuming hand-dyed because the majority of color-changing yarns that I see are hand-dyed. And one thing you can do, because I know hand-dyed yarn, especially color-changing yarn, can be on the pricey side, is to pick out a few colors that you see in the hand-dyed skein and stripe it, or use the color changing yarn as an accent and use the plain yarn as like the majority of the piece. And that's a cool way to make sure your colors are balanced and go well together and get to use like a fun yarn, like I was talking about yarn being inspiring before. Yeah, while also knowing that it matches and it looks nice and it's something you'll want to wear and doesn't just look like a kiddie's craft project with a bunch of different colors. The final chapter of our video is adapting patterns. So I've talked a lot in this video about doing stripes, and that's because I think adding stripes can be a really fun and easy way to make like an existing project you have more colourful, especially if you're doing something in stockinette. I think almost any pattern can be adapted to use stripes. My first tip for this is if you have different yarn weights, like I have here, I think I have 3 different yarn weights in this project. I've got this really thick one, this light pink and green, they're kind of middle, and then these ones, and this grey is really thin. So one thing I was really intentional about was making sure you're alternating between thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin. And then it means the overall piece will at least keep the same shape. I don't have a better word for it, but like if you do like a thick, like all your thick colors and then all your thin colors, it's more likely to be, or the difference is more likely to be evident, rather than if you're quickly changing between them, it keeps it quite uniform. Always, always, always do your gauge swatch. I'm sure you've heard it before and I'm not the only one to say it. But yeah, do a gauge swatch, see if it works, alternating thick and thin. And if you're still noticing quite a difference, or if you want to do some really thick stripes, not thin ones like I've done here, if you want to do really thick stripes or color blocking and it's just not going to look good with the different yarn weights of the different colored yarns, then you can try out alternating your needle sizes. So if you have a yarn that's a bit thicker, using a thinner needle size, creating a stiffer fabric might help to bring it to the same gauge or number of stitches per 10 centimeters as the other yarn you're using. It's the same way that if you have a really thin yarn, maybe sizing up your needles or even adding like a mohair or a lace weight yarn to complement can be a really good idea. This will result in having slightly different textures, but honestly, knitting's about having fun. I don't think it matters too much. You can see my textures are slightly different here. The grey is just a little bit more holy than the blue beside it. But personally, I don't think it's really noticeable. So she'll be fine. Another fun way to add more colours into your piece is by doing a little colourwork motif. I think if you're a beginner, the easiest way to try this is to do it in the stockinette part of your garment, whatever you're making. So maybe doing like a little stockinette detail around the cuff or around like the bottom part of your jumper. That reminds me, I haven't shown off my top yet. It's my colour work. Another fun way to add a little bit more colour into your patterns is to pick a repeating a repeating colourwork motif, maybe like a few dainty little flowers or a little wiggle or zigzag pattern or whatever. If you're a beginner especially, the easiest way to incorporate this is to do it in the straight stockinette part of your pattern, so you don't have to worry about increases or decreases. So for example, maybe having a nice little floral detail around the cuff, or something of interest around this section of the jumper where it cuts off, assuming you're making a jumper. That could be quite fun. Another way is to think of colour blocking, especially in knitting. I think the easiest way to do this is to do a contrast collar. So see here, I've got a purple collar, or you could do contrast detailing, like blue, the blue buttons I've got here. And this can be really cool if you want a nice subtle pop of colour while still maintaining like an overall neutral. Or if you just want to go ham and have colourful colour blocks in lots of different colours. Some examples of this that I absolutely love is this Oliver bonus jumper. It's not a knitting pattern, it's just a jumper. But I think the idea of colour blocking in this jumper could be easily recreated in any normal knitting pattern that you use. So they've done the bright blue, little orange stripe and purple at the cuff. Again, if you're a bit intimidated by colour, you could make the whole, or the main piece, the blue part, in something neutral, and just do a fun little colour block by the sleeves. There's also this pattern, the Camilla jumper by Club Knit, and I really like how she's done the overall neutral, something classy, something that you'll feel comfortable wearing, but she's added a fun pop of colour around the collar and on the the seam detail on the shoulder. And this could be done in like a range of colours. I think it would be really cool to have like a bright red or pink jumper with maybe like a lighter pink detailing around there. Could be quite fun. And that is everything. That's pretty much a wrap for this video. I hope you found it helpful and are inspired to choose more colours for your next knitting project, whether it's adding stripes to a simple sweater pattern or using artwork to inspire your next palette. Obviously, in the world of knitting, because you're limited by the yarns that you have around you, it is hard to get like exact matches. So it can also be fun just to go into a yarn store and see what colours pop out for you, and then use some of these tips to choose your like second or third or fourth colours or whatever. That's also a really good starting point. But yeah, I hope you found this helpful and inspiring, and encouraged to be a bit more brave and a bit more expressive in using colours moving forward. Good luck with your knitting projects, everybody, and I will see you in the next one. Please let me know your favourite colour combinations below, and like and subscribe because I really want to build this community and work on my videos, and it gives me a lot of motivation to hear some positive feedback. Bye.